Hello again, Dan Alasso, Making History, and today I'm going to read you another of my chapters from An Infidel Body Snatcher and the Fruits of His Philosophy. And this one is called Stephen J.W. Tabor. And beginning with a quote from Knowlton's memoir, "Although there be a very wide difference between a bad man and a man of bad principles, yet few will stop to look for, and some cannot see this difference. As to what principles are bad, the question is easily settled. For all erroneous principles are bad, and all principles that differ from mine are erroneous. This everybody will say." So clearly in my mind he is talking about the experience that he has just had after publishing The Fruits of Philosophy. And now my story. After his arrival in Ashfield, Charles split his time between building his medical practice and promoting The Fruits of Philosophy. Charles was much more successful finding general booksellers interested in carrying the birth control book than he'd been selling modern materialism. And of course, many of the free thought bookshops that had carried his first book also stocked his second. One of those shops belonged to Gilbert Vale. Like Francis Wright and Robert Dale Owen, Vale was a British expatriate who had emigrated to America and operated a small publishing business and free thought bookshop in New York City. Vale was also an author himself, who had written a biography of Thomas Paine and organized the monument that still stands at Paine's home in New Rochelle. The catalog of liberal works for his Chatham Square shop alphabetically listed Fruits of Philosophy Knowlton's for 50 cents, just below Vale's own book, Fanaticism, Its Source and Influence. It's possible that Gilbert Vale's press in the Bowery may have been where Charles printed The Fruits of Philosophy in early 1832. That would explain why his book's cover page says it was printed in New York. And printing the book in Vale's shop would have given Charles a chance to get to know the Englishman's young assistant, Stephen Tabor. It's uncertain whether Tabor helped Charles produce Fruits of Philosophy. What we do know is that Charles took the young man home to Ashfield with him and began training him as a doctor. Stephen James Wilson Tabor was born in Corinth, Vermont in 1815. Orphaned at a young age, Stephen managed to educate himself and become an accomplished writer. Tabor took Vermont's examination to become a schoolteacher and scored well on all the academic subjects. But in a conversation after the exam, the minister in charge of testing discovered that Tabor was a freethinker. An angry letter to a free thought newspaper told the story. Quote, "The examination accordingly commenced with regard to his scientific qualifications and ended satisfactorily. But after a conversation had taken place between the salaried and arrogant dispenser of the gospel and the humble claimant of the toils of schoolkeeping, the former, finding the latter to be an infidel, refused to give him any other than the following certificate, which, not attesting to his moral character, was, according to this state, null and void." Reverend Clark Perry, the superintendent of the Newbury schools, certified that he had examined Tabor and was, quote, "willing to approbate him so far as literary attainments are concerned. But as he professes not to believe in the Bible as the Word of God, we will not take the responsibility of recommending him as to moral character." Stephen Tabor tried to reason with the minister. He offered to bring Perry written testimonials of his moral character from all the leading men of Bradford, who had known him all his life. But Reverend Perry refused to reconsider, apparently believing a 17-year-old without religion would corrupt the children of Vermont. Disgusted, Stephen packed his things and headed for New York, where his writing skills quickly got him a job on Gilbert Vale's newspaper, The Beacon. Stephen and Charles met in 1832, and Charles invited the young man to come home with him and study medicine. Like the physicians he had trained with, Charles had begun opening his home to young men beginning their study of medicine. But unlike the other men who came to study with Charles in Ashfield, Stephen lived in the Knowlton household for nearly a decade. He became a doctor and settled in the neighboring town of Shelburne. The early infidelity he'd been punished for in Vermont grew into a lifetime commitment, and Tabor regularly wrote articles for free thought papers. And in the summer of 1843, Stephen J.W. Tabor married Lucy Melvina Knowlton, 3 days after her 17th birthday. So that is how Stephen Tabor becomes associated with the Knowltons. The article that includes the memoir that I've been quoting from at the beginning of many of these chapters was actually sent to the Boston Medical and Surgical Journal by Stephen Tabor after Charles's death. So I hope you found that chapter a little bit interesting. In the next chapter, Charles will be arrested once more, this time for publishing The Fruits of Philosophy. But that's all for now. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again very soon.